It was a Wednesday afternoon when the bank called my name. I remember drying my hands on my apron before I picked up the phone. My hands are old now. They know leather and glue and the smell of shoe polish. They do not know good news. Not anymore, Mr. Alvarez. The voice said, "This is First Union Bank calling about your account." My stomach turned. I sat down on my work stool. I closed my eyes. For 3 years, I have owned this modest shoe repair shop on the corner of Maple Street. It is not much. 1 counter, 2 chairs, a wall of tools that were my father's before they were mine. But it is mine, and I have fought to keep it. My father opened this shop 40 years ago, when Maple Street was still dirt and gravel. He taught me everything at this very counter. How to read a worn heel, how to choose the right thread, how to treat every customer's shoes as if they were my own. When he passed, the shop passed to me, tools and debts and all. The trouble started 5 years ago. My wife needed care I could not afford. I took a loan against the shop to pay the bills. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I would catch up soon. 5 years passed. I did not catch up. Every month, I counted coins at the register. Every month, I diligently sent what I could to the bank. Some months, it was not enough. Once I walked into the bank myself, hat in hand, to ask for more time. A young manager looked at my file and sighed. "Mr. Alvarez," he said, "we cannot wait forever." I nodded and thanked him, though there was nothing to thank him for. I walked home that day feeling smaller than I had felt in years. My son David left for the city 8 years ago. He calls twice a year, maybe 3 times if it is a good year. Christmas, my birthday. Sometimes nothing at all. He has his own life now, a life far from Maple Street, far from leather and glue and old machines. I do not blame him. A father should not need his son to carry his troubles. So I never told David about the loan. I never mentioned the letters the bank kept sending. I never admitted that I lay awake some nights, counting the months I had left before I lost the shop my father built with his own hands. Still, I worked. I fixed shoes for the neighborhood, 1 pair at a time. I told myself tomorrow would be easier. "Mr. Alvarez, are you there?" The voice on the phone asked again. "Yes," I said. My voice was small. "I am here." I braced myself. I thought of the letters in my drawer, the red stamps, the deadlines I had missed. This was the call, I was certain. The call that would tell me the shop was gone. "I am calling to confirm," the woman said, "that your loan balance has been paid in full." I did not understand at first. I asked her to repeat it. She did. "Paid in full, Mr. Alvarez. As of this morning, you owe nothing." I sat very still. The shop was quiet. Outside, a bus passed on Maple Street. Inside, my heart was pounding like a young man's heart, not an old man's. "There must be a mistake," I said. "There is no mistake," she answered gently. "A payment was made yesterday by David Alvarez. He asked us to call and tell you personally." David. My son, who calls twice a year. My son, who I thought had forgotten the smell of leather and glue. My son had quietly paid off 5 years of debt in a single afternoon, without a word to me. I could not speak. I sat holding the phone long after the woman said goodbye. I looked around my small shop. At the wall of tools, at the worn wooden counter, at the window where the afternoon light came in soft and gold. That evening, I called David for the first time in longer than I could remember. My hands were shaking when I dialed. "Papa," he answered. "Is everything all right?" "The bank called," I said. "They told me what you did." There was a long silence on the line. Then David spoke, and his voice sounded younger than I remembered. Almost like the boy who used to sit on the floor of the shop, watching me work. "I found the letters," he said. "Last time I visited. I saw them in your drawer. I should have said something then. I am sorry it took me so long." "You did not have to do this," I told him. My throat was tight. "Yes, I did," he said. "You gave me everything, Papa. This shop paid for my school. Your hands built the life I have now. Let me build something back. I did not know what to say. I have mended 1,000 broken shoes in my life, but I did not know how to mend the words caught in my chest. Thank you, I finally managed. Thank you, David. I will call more, he said. Not just Christmas. Not just birthdays. I want to know how the shop is doing. I want to know how you are doing. I have heard promises before. I have learned not to lean on them too heavily, but something in his voice was different this time, steady and certain, like a man who had already decided. The next morning, I opened the shop, as always. I swept the floor. I laid out my tools, but something felt lighter in my chest, something I had not felt in 5 years. A young woman came in with a torn boot. I fixed it while she waited, the way my father taught me, the way I hoped to teach someone else one day. When she left, she thanked me twice. I thought about David all day. I thought about the letters hidden in my drawer, the nights I spent alone with my worry, the years I let pass in silence because I did not want to be a burden. Perhaps I was wrong to carry it alone. Perhaps love does not wait to be asked. Perhaps it simply finds its way, even across years of silence, even across a city and a phone line and twice-a-year calls. David visited 2 weeks later. He walked into the shop the way he used to as a boy, letting the bell above the door ring, breathing in the smell of leather and polish like it was something he had missed more than he admitted. It still smells the same, he said, smiling. Some things do not change, I told him. We sat together behind the counter that evening, father and son, mending an old pair of boots, side by side, not saying much, not needing to. He asked about the customers by name, the ones he remembered from childhood. He asked which tools still worked and which ones I had replaced. The silence between us was not the silence of 5 years apart. It was the comfortable silence of two people who no longer had anything left to hide. Before he left that night, David paused at the door. Maybe I will come back next month too, he said. Not because you need help. Just because I want to. I would like that. I told him it was a Wednesday afternoon when the bank called my name. But it was not the bank that saved me that day. It was my son, finding his way back to me, one quiet payment at a time.